So thank you very much, Mr. Uteg, for announcing that Jamie Phillips is smarter than me. I agree, but I don't usually admit it to her in public. But I will begin this presentation by introducing the omniscient and omnipotent Jamie Phillips. Thank you very much.
It's a lot of pressure. I think I will probably exceed my 1-minute time limit for this presentation, but it shouldn't be too bad. So as you know, on next Tuesday, May 16th, is our annual budget vote. It starts at 7 a.m. and lasts until 9 p.m. in the high school Java Gym. Our overall proposed budget for 17-18 is $103.9 million. It is a 2.34% million dollar increase over this current school year, and that's a 2.31% budget-to-budget increase. Since our initial budget work session back in January, our initial draft budget was $2.1 million more than what we're proposing to you for next week's vote. We've made several cuts to people's hopes and dreams and wishes, stayed pretty flat with supplies, equipment, contractual money. We've had some benefit reductions since the beginning of the budget process, and we've also found some efficiencies in various other areas of our budget where we were able to reduce the budget. We are required by state law to present the budget in what they consider simple, plain language, and that is in 3 separate parts: the administrative component, the program component, and the capital component. That is how the budget is broken out in your budget newsletter that you received at your house, and that's also how we'll go through the budget tonight, and then we'll also break it down in a couple of different ways after that. With regards to the administrative component is for the overall general support and management of the district, which includes the district office functions, district-wide expenses, the business functions, and also our building administration. This portion of the budget is the smallest overall portion of the budget of the 3, and it is 9.8%. Last year it was 9.92%, so this portion of the budget is a smaller piece for next year than it is this current school year. Most of the increases of the $115,000 increase in this budget area overall is related to contractual salary increases for staff salaries that are within this budget area. And then we also have some in, hold on, let me find, 1680, the $34,000 increase. That code is a lot of our BOCES expenses and are related to a lot of the software functions in the school district, such as our student management system, our financial management system, our website, our special education tracking systems. So we have some enhancements in some of those services that we're receiving, and that's the other main increase in this area. I will have Dr. Perini come over and talk to you about the program portion.
Thank you. This is the largest portion of the budget, approximately 74% of the budget, and it contains all the expenditures directly related to classroom instruction, special education, technology, transportation, extracurriculars, and student support. Student support is health services, counseling, and so on. It maintains all current programs, class sizes, and student opportunities. It adds 1 AIS teacher at the K-3 level to support math, and I'll talk about that a little more in a moment, and adds 1 additional AP course at the high school to support college readiness. Their major expenditures in this area are contractual salaries and benefits for instructional faculty and staff, and the wisest woman in the room will go over those numbers with you in a few moments. She's also one of the kindest and Most wonderful people in the world. But I need some budget money. Anyway, all right. We have a particular increase, if you'll notice, in the budget line. For BOCES, we show a particular increase for two reasons. One of them is an increase in special education services and all the related services with that, transportation and support services for our special ed population. Our special education program is known for its excellence throughout the area, and we actually have people moving into the area because of the special education program. So we can be very pleased with that. The other increase, particular increase, is in ELL, or English language learners, in the district. Last year at this time we had 8 students. This year we have 25, and we have a considerable list coming out of preschool, which could increase our numbers by another third by the time September comes. So these are particular expenses, and because of state mandated services for ELL students, we must have a certain number of hours that we touch those students every particular day. These two areas alone account for about $800,000 in the budget. And several of the expenses in this part of the budget are covered by state funds. We get hardware, software money, we get special education aid, we get some additional funding for technology and BOCES and transportation. So some of the expenses are offset. So this is my favorite time. Right now I get to brag on all the good things that are going on in Lancaster. So I hope that you will enjoy some of these great things that are going on. We have a full saturation of Chromebooks, which means we have enough Chromebooks for every student in this district. We have been able to, through Smart Schools money and wise use of textbook money, we've been able to purchase these Chromebooks, which are used every day, every hour of the day, in every classroom in the district. We have support for those programs on 3 levels. We have some teachers in each building who are technology gurus who support the program and come up with great ideas within their building. We have tech mentors, 3 tech mentors who are teachers on special assignment who support the program. And we also have techsperts who are right now in the high school supporting the program, assisting teachers and helping them in any way they can. And next year they're expanding their tent posts a bit, and they'll be covering some areas throughout the district. So we're very fortunate to have that kind of support. We have a number of, just to make one point, we have a number of Interwrite boards in the district, and in the places where we don't have Interwrite boards, we have emergent technology. So we have other projection options other than the Interwrite board, but we have that kind of technology available for all of our students throughout the district. We have advanced math, which starts at William Street and goes right into the high school. So there's many places along that trail that students can jump on the train. They don't once get picked for advanced courses and can never get involved in those again. We have technology and science who are working together to incorporate the new science standards. A lot of districts are being very slow in incorporating these science standards. We are one of the leaders in the area in terms of looking at these new standards, devising the curriculum that goes with them and the instruction, and working on that even before it's on our doorstep. We have 18 AP classes. This year we have 3 new classes, and we also have AP World, which our students are taking the test the first time. Sophomores are taking the test for the first time this year, which gives them a tremendous opportunity, again, for college readiness. We have increasing enrollment in living environment and Algebra 1 at the middle school, and we're very pleased with that, opening opportunities for students in the high school to be able to take additional coursework. We have a Trades Academy opening in 2017, and that we have worked very diligently to afford opportunities to students who may not be college bound, but are trades bound. So we are supporting that. And we also have every single senior in this district takes college level English with a collaborative of instructors from Bryant and Stratton and our district. And they all take that coursework, not just the AP kids, every student has that experience for college readiness. We have summer school. Almost every district has gotten rid of summer school. We get calls every year, can our students please come to your summer school? We are one of the only ones, and we have summer school K-12 to support students. We have alternative programs to support students. We don't have a 98% graduation rate by accident. We have dedicated teachers, and we have dedicated administrators, and we have programs in place to support those students. Did you know that in this district we have transition discussions, transition programs started 7th grade and move right through 12, where students in special education create a plan for their future. What coursework are they going to take? Where are they going to be beyond high school? Did you know that our district is a forerunner in the area in that particular program? And did you know that John Armstrong was a presenter about a year and a half ago at a regional conference specific to those transition programs? And they are in place, and they are supporting kids. They're supporting kids who need that particular program. And great. We have leadership opportunities for everybody. Tonight was a wonderful example of our leadership program. But we have leadership programs for the kiddos who are in kindergarten. When they start to collect bears and they start to collect money for water wells and so on, we start to build that leadership opportunity all the way through the high school. Service and caring for others, some of the most important things that we can leave our children with when they leave here. Our class sizes are maintained. Every program in this budget is maintained. That includes K through 12 art, music, phys ed. We have health programs. We have AP courses again, and we have academies. Every year I say this, every year I mean it. This is a great district. Thank you for all of your support.
And back to the less exciting things. The third component is the capital component, and the capital component is comprised of our operations and maintenance budget for maintaining all of the district's facilities and grounds, and then also debt service payments from previous and current capital projects. Overall, this portion of the budget has increased $500,000. The major increase that you see in the first couple of codes, the operations and maintenance portions, is the inclusion of a painter position and also contractual salary increases. On the debt service side, you'll see that in the first two debt service codes, 9711.6 and .7, those codes are going down because we paid off a bond from a building project from 15 years ago. But just below that, you'll see that bond anticipation note premiums and interests are increasing, and that is the temporary financing that we have going on for our current capital project. So all of those debt service costs, which is total $6.5 million for 2017-18, an increase of $460,000, are covered in full on the revenue side by two sources. One source being state building aid, and the other source, the difference between the total and the building aid, is from our debt service reserve. So that debt service portion and all is does not factor into the tax levy whatsoever. Overall, these three portions of the budget add up to the $2.4 million increase. Administration program, I again reiterate, is 9.8%. The program portion is 74.13%, and the capital portion is 16.07%. We're showing you one other way to look at the expenditures. The previous way was to show you how they're spent by department and by function, and this is how they're spent by object, which means what category of expenditure that they're in. So we have salaries, equipment, contractual, textbooks, BOCES, materials and supplies, and employee benefits. So I think this gives you a good idea of the specific areas that we're spending. As you can see, instructional salaries and non-instructional salaries are one of the biggest portions of the budget. If you look down and add into that employee benefits, which are all interrelated, $77.2 million of this $103.9 million budget is related to salaries and benefits. We are a people business. Our job is to educate children, and we use people to do that. So 75% of our overall budget is related to employing all of our staff, from teacher to bus driver to cafeteria monitor. 72% of our overall budget-to-budget increase is related to salaries. And those are all contractually negotiated, so they're obligations that we have based on the collective bargaining units we have, agreements that we have with the bargaining units within the district. You can see in the BOCES area and also the contractual area two pretty large increases. In the contractual, some of that is related to the special education tuition that Dr. Perini mentioned, with the increase in special education placements in the district, also OT and PT services and transportation. On the BOCES side, about $525,000 of that, or about $310,000 of that increase is related to the English language learners, and then also a large majority of that is also related to the special education placements. To talk about the benefits a little bit, because we didn't talk about that when we went through the other portions of the budget. Our contribution to the New York State Employees Retirement System is remaining flat this year. That entire cost of that benefit is offset by reserve funds on the revenue side. Our TRS contribution has gone from 11.72% in 16-17 to 9.8% in 17-18. So we were, even though salaries in that area increased, our contribution percent decreased, so we were able to decrease the budget in that area. Our workers' compensation premium through instituting safety programs has reduced by about $100,000, and that's reflected in the budget. Our unemployment costs, after reviewing them, we've been able to reduce the budget to about $50,000, and that is completely offset by reserve fund on the revenue side. And our health insurance, even though in the industry people are seeing typically 10 to 20% premium increases this coming year, we are self-funded, and our plan performance has been really excellent, and we've been able to mitigate any increases, so our health insurance costs are expected to remain flat. Excuse me for a second. So on Tuesday, you're voting on the overall expenditure budget. That is what the proposition is for, and that is what you are voting on. But we are also required to present you with a balanced budget. So we do have to present you with estimated revenues, though that is not what you are voting on. Our estimates for the revenues are just that, they're estimates, but based on a lot of factors that we know, they're pretty good and pretty accurate estimates. Our property tax levy, we're proposing or estimating about a $1.1 million increase, which is 2.17%. Well, I'll talk about that relative to our tax cap in a couple of slides. The increase in other property tax items is some additional pilots that are coming onto the tax rolls for the 17-18 school year. We received about $500,000 in additional state aid over this current school year. And in the local revenue area, we were able to increase our budget by about $90,000 due to some dividends that we've been receiving from our workers' compensation insurance company and also our liability insurance company due to good performance. On the fund balance side and reserve use, we are using our reserves to the maximum as allowed by law. We are appropriating an additional $1 million in surplus from this year towards next year to mitigate any tax increase. So overall, in terms of reserves and fund balance, it's 8.14% of our revenue, and it's an increase of $522,000 over this current year. This is just a quick graphic to show you kind of how the revenue pie pans out. The property tax last year was 48.73% of overall revenue. This year is 48.66%. So that is a smaller piece of the pie than in this current school year. Our appropriated surplus is 8.14% as opposed to last year, which was 7.82%. So our surplus and use of fund balance and reserves is increasing compared to this current school year. And our state aid, our county sales tax, and our miscellaneous stays just about the same as the current year. Our property tax levy limit cap, or the 2% cap, as most people know, this year our calculation, our maximum allowable levy was 3.72%. The tax levy that we are estimating with this proposed budget is just under $1.1 million, which is 2.17%. So that is $768,748 less than our cap calculation, which we could have gone out with and still only required 50% of voter approval. And down to the thing I think everybody really is wanting to know is our estimated tax rates. In Lancaster, we are estimating a $17.15 tax rate, Cheektowaga $16.38, and Alma $378.28 per $1,000. Those are all different because all of the communities are assessed slightly differently, and they're not all assessed at 100% at this point with the equalization rate. So a couple of facts. Last year, when we stood up here and the budget that was approved by the voters, we estimated a Lancaster tax rate of $17.17 per $1,000. $17.17. So this year's estimated rate is 2 cents lower than what we estimated and proposed last year. Further, the previous year's tax rate was $17.04. When we levied tax this past September, the rate was $16.96 per $1,000. So we were 8 cents less than the previous year, and we were 21 cents less than we estimated at budget time, and that was approved by the voters. And then so this next year's estimate is still lower than what was approved by voters last May. Everybody, I think, can do the math, but here's the estimated tax bill. This does not account for veterans exemptions, star exemptions, anything like that. If your house is assessed at $100,000 in Lancaster, you're looking at a $19 tax increase. $150,000, you're looking at a $28.50 increase. In a $200,000 house, you're looking at a $38 increase. For residents who have their primary residence and have star on their property, the tax bills for those, they will still be receiving, again, the $185 tax refund check from New York State, which will cover these increases. And the last thing we have to talk about regarding budget, which is my least favorite thing, is what do we do if the budget is voted down. We have several options. One option is for the board to take the same budget and put it back up for vote in June. The next option would be for the board to adjust the budget and make some changes and put that back out to vote in June. And then the third option would be to just adopt a contingency budget. Contingency budget used to mean take a couple of pieces of equipment out of the budget and we move forward. Now with the new property tax cap law, I still call it new even though it's been 4 years, that's not the case anymore. We cannot raise taxes the levy has to remain the same as this year. So what we would have to do is cut over $1 million from the budget, which would, at this point, mean potentially program staff, supplies, and some other contractual expenses. Proposition number 2, replacement school buses. We typically have this proposition for you. It is for 17-18, we're proposing to purchase 7 65-passenger buses and 1 42-passenger bus. We are on a 12-year replacement cycle on all of our school buses. Those 7 buses will replace 7 buses of that same size, and the 1 42-passenger bus will be a new bus. It will not be replacing anything. The total cost of that total proposition is $964,000, and the cost of that entire proposition will be covered by the bus purchase reserve, so there will be 0 tax impact. Third thing on the ballot, I think most of you are here at 6 o'clock for the Meet the Candidates, is to select 3 board candidates. Says vote for 2. Sorry, I used last year's PowerPoint. So you're going to pick 3, and those are your 3 candidates. Dr. Valley, do you have anything you want to add before we open up to questions?
I would like to just say some things, and then we'll get to them. You know, I would like to address the elephant in the room. If you know me at all, let's just talk about it. Let's be direct and honest. So let's talk a little bit. Here's a Board of Education president in a local school district, all right? And she writes, this year's budget gap is $2 million. Caused in large part by continued inequitable state aid increases in special education and transportation costs. Current budget projections tell us that program cuts and increased class sizes across all 3 schools appear unavoidable. The Board of Education has indicated a willingness to consider exceeding the tax cap to preserve the quality of education in this district. While that possibility is being discussed, exceeding the cap will still not allow us to retain everything. There will still be significant cuts. Current proposals include reverting to half-day kindergarten, class sizes in the high 20s at the elementary level, and mid to high 30s at the high school and middle school levels. Elimination of general music at the middle school. Elimination of electives across all subject areas at the high school. Reductions to our athletic offerings and district-wide cuts to support services. In all, we're talking about a 10% reduction in teaching staff, the elimination of administrative positions, and significant cuts to the program offerings for our students. That's a local school board president, and I don't think you want to be that person. Very difficult times, but that's what we're living in with a 2% tax cap. So let me explain this and talk to you a little bit directly. Let's use Lancaster as an example. You may remember in 2007, Lancaster went out with a 0% tax increase. In 2008, we went out with a 0% tax increase. In 2009, we went out with a little decrease in taxes. And what happened in 2010? Many of you are shaking your heads right now because you remember this whole auditorium was filled with 400, 500, 600 people. We closed Central Avenue. We laid off teachers. We reduced administrators. We cut programs, threatened an 8-period day. We did all those things. Our whole entire employee and staff took a pay freeze that year. 0, 0, 0, basically. And what was it that year? 9.6% increase. Boom. What happened that year? Not something that we did necessarily. What happened was the state in their infinite wisdom had a great plan. You know, hey, all right, we're out of money. So what will we do? We'll do a gap elimination adjustment. We have a gap, so what we'll do is we'll take money from the school district, and that was millions of dollars. And if you remember, because I've been talking about this for, I've been here for 11 and a half years now, that money didn't come to the school district. So we were put in that situation. So the reality is it isn't something that was done, we did, it was something that was done to us. So that year, $3.5 million didn't come to us, and we were at a budget shortfall, all right? So that's fact. That's history. We should learn from history and look at that. So that is important. I'm looking at Mr. Foley, who was board president years ago. That was the old days. So that school district, Lancaster in that particular case, they could bail themselves out if something happened. Go for a big increase in 9.6. The community came out in droves. They came out here and they said, we support our students. We want to save our schools so it doesn't go down the tubes. And they did that. But the reality is now we're in a brave new world, Lotus Huxley. A brave new world. It's called the 2% tax cap. You cannot bail yourself out anymore. So consequently, when you're looking at that school district that I read from the Board of Education, she would love to bail herself out, but she can't. She's capped at a 2% tax cap and a supermajority vote that, to my knowledge, has never been accomplished to date. So it's certainly not in Western New York, and you know the school district that just tried to do it recently and it failed. So that's the situation. So let's talk about reserves, all right, and a 2% tax cap. So in this context of a 2% cap that's only been in existence for 4 years, we have to think about and do things differently. We have to be strategic and planful, all right? And I'm just telling you right now that I'm a planner. And the reality is that we must plan for those changes. We can't live with the old rules. It's not don't pass a budget, go to 3%, cut some equipment. It is lose $1.2 million and cut it that year. Those are the new rules. So we have to stop living in the past and living in the old rules, embrace the new rules, and then plan that way. So this Board of Education, this school district, has done that. The smart way to do it is, we didn't go to the cap max. We go to the cap max, we go to the cap to the lowest possible position, the lowest tax increase, which this year is 1.15%, at the same time that we use reserves to fill in those gaps. And the goal is to kick the can down the road and let the air out of the balloon slowly. So those people who want to throw in reserves and do those things, our school district will remain, the way it is right now until about the sophomore year in high school, the sophomores in high school. And I'm telling you right now as superintendent, love those kids, but it should be for all of our kids. 8th graders, the 7th graders, the 4th graders. We have a moral obligation to ensure that the education that the kindergartners coming in right now, or coming in this coming year, experience the same school system that the seniors did this year and throughout their whole career. That's what we're fighting for here, folks. That's what it's about. So we can have our different philosophical ideas. People say they want to talk about the budget. I couldn't be prouder to talk about the budget. If there's a feeling that I don't want to talk to the budget, you're wrong. I wear our fiscal stability and the finances of this budget as a badge of honor. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to do everything I can to kick the can down the road so all of our children have the same opportunities that they do right now. Any questions, I'd be love to answer them.
Good evening, Rick Foley, 40 Deer Path. And I was on the board in 07, 08, and 09 with those zero tax increases. And then I got out. So I knew what was coming. But I am very proud of the work the board and the district has done on the budget. 1.15% tax increase is excellent, especially for a retired guy now on a fixed income. But I have a question for the wise woman back there. Earlier you told me that the taxable assessment in Lancaster was $30 million that you're projecting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what it was last year, the actual?
Yes, the actual ended up being, I believe, right around 60 million.
60, okay, now. I know that seems to be a lot of growth and building going on still in Lancaster. Mm-hmm. If the assessments, the actual assessment turns out to be higher, will we see the tax rate decrease like we did last year?
Yes, we set the tax levy in August. So the numbers that we gave you for estimated tax rates are just that, estimated, because we set them in August. So the assessors of all the townships solidify their tax rolls in July. The equalization rates are set by New York State in July, and then we calculate what the workout is, the tax rate is based on those new numbers. So while there may be additional assessed value in Lancaster that we can expect for August when we're actually calculating the tax levy, we also know that Lancaster is not 100% assessed and their equalization rate is probably going down. So we think those will kind of mitigate each other. But 1715, we are giving you a conservative estimate, and we would anticipate that it would be no higher than that.
Right. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Do you need my name and address?
Yes, please. It's part of the protocol.
John Doe, no, just kidding. Bob Potosniak, 27 Hidden Trail, Lancaster, New York. And I want to start out with a comment. Hi, you see me in person. The reason we're waving is I have experienced nothing but positive results whenever I call Jamie, right? Jamie or her office with any of the questions regarding the budget, no matter what time of the year, and she always returns my call with an answer, which I think was brought up by one of the board members there. So I pose her the question, she doesn't know it, she always gets back to me, and she'd be very proud having her on staff. We should be very proud of her because she does watch our pennies and nickels.
President 220.
Pardon me?
President 220.
Hey, I'll go for it. We won't go there. But I have a couple of questions. So if anybody wants to come up, I mean, please just hit me upside the head. Just watch my neck because it's fractured, okay? The buses that we're purchasing, are those under a state contract or are we out individually?
State contract.
Okay, super. Mr. Foley, did you just say that last year the assessment values were 30 million and this year it's 60 million? Did I miss?
Last year was 60 million.
60 million.
So you understand how? So
the
I'm
year
sorry.
before that was what?
Do you remember? 40? It was around 40. So here's how that works. If you,
Okay.
I don't know, are you asking like?
Yeah, like if it went up 20 million.
Yeah, so what happens is, last year is a great classic example. The town is the one that does the assessed valuation and is pulling in all that data. And we're on a different fiscal calendar than them, or a different time frame. So right now, we're going out with our budget in May, and they're gonna go and do it in August. So the tax rate is set in August. So consequently, we have to be very conservative, and we always say that this is an estimate. So right now, we're talking 19 cents or $17.15 rate, okay? Last year, it was 13 cents per thousand and a 17.17 rate, okay? And what happened was, so 13 cents and 17. So that's what the taxpayers approved. So then all of a sudden, the assessed valuation and all those numbers, and they actually set it. So it went down 21 cents. So in the end, taxpayers in Lancaster received a tax decrease of 8 cents. 13 minus the 21, 8 cents per thousand, your taxes went down, and it's because of the growth and those kind of things that are happening in Lancaster.
Okay. So, okay, that's great. Thank you. I guess I'm a bit concerned because I was here for the candidates and their discussion, and a seated board member who said he's the member of the chairman of the budget audit committee said that the audit provided by the state was just an opinion. And in my professional experience, an audit is a certified statement that what we are presented with is accurate. That is a little bit of a disconnect in my mind. So who is actually looking at the results from the state audit and making sure that we are complying with all the laws and regulations?
Well, first of all, we have a number of audits. So auditors come in, and we have auditors that actually do our audit for our own finances. So consequently, that's our audit, and we can look at those things, and those are numbers or whatever. With the one we're talking about, the comptroller, the New York State Comptroller is a political office, and they go out and they do audits every 5 years of school districts, and then they report their results. But in this particular case, there is nothing that we have to act on from the comptroller's office other than doing a plan to mitigate some of the things that he suggests. But it isn't something that we have to act on if we don't agree with it. So I'll give you Jamie will give you a great example of one of our reserves.
So all of the reserve funds that school districts are allowed to have are regulated in general municipal law. So they all have very specific ways to set them up, ways to put money in them, ways to liquidate and spend money from them, ways to liquidate them, and specific reasons why you can hold money in reserve, and then they can only be spent on specific expenditures. So one reason why it's indicated that report is an opinion is that they indicate that we have reserves that are overfunded. There is not a minimum or maximum allowed balance in general municipal law or any sort of publication related to any of those reserves. So to say that they're overfunded when there's no limit according to law, regulation, or even any guidance, that would be a good reason why we consider it an opinion. So one example, our employee benefits accrued liability reserve, they said was overfunded. So that is the reserve that we're required to hold per our bargaining unit contracts for payouts for people's sick days upon their retirement. So they have been in to audit that reserve for, I think they came in 3 years in a row. Mm-hmm. In the first year, their calculation of what our sick day benefits added up to was different from us. We sat and we worked through it with them to figure out how they calculated it. So for the next year, we used their calculation to figure out our number, and then that auditor that came out that year came out with a different number. And I said, how is that possible? We're using your calculation. Oh, well, we changed the way we did the calculation. Mm-hmm. And then that happened also a third year in a row. So we've since, with that reserve, hired an independent auditor to come in and do a vesting study, because it's all about how long people remain employed, how long they stay once they're hired. They did a vesting study and have in fact found that we should actually have more money on reserve than we actually are holding in that reserve, based on the study. You don't want to have an unfunded retirement fund, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
So that's just one example.
Yeah.
And then also with the 4% thing, they combine two separate types of fund balance for illustration purposes.
That's fine. That's good. That's good. That's good.
Okay.
Did you want to pop in?
Yeah, actually, you take your time though.
Okay. Okay. What is our fund balance right now? Our reserve fund balance?
Well, see, the thing is that you have to understand that we have 9 reserves. Okay, like she talked about one of the ones that didn't have they're all different rules and everything else.
Yeah, the one that had 400,000, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So what I'd say to you is, it's important for you to think about this not as just one lump sum. All right, this isn't like a savings account with one number in it. Okay, so we have a workers' compensation reserve, an unemployment insurance reserve, a retirement contribution reserve, a property loss reserve, an insurance reserve, a tax certiorari reserve, an employment benefit accrued liability reserve, a capital reserve, and a mandatory reserve for debt service. And if you think about it, it's sort of like someone saying to you, all right, well, how many utensils do you have in your kitchen? Well, that's not the good question. The good question is, do you have a spatula and do you have a can opener? Because you can't use the can opener to flip eggs, and you can't use the spatula to open up things. Everyone has different rules and regulations. They have different caps and everything. So part of that comptroller's report was they asked us, and we agree, that let's talk about the reserves. Let's put it all out there for the whole community and everything else. So the plan is, in late summer, early October, we'll have a public meeting with the Board of Education and go through every single dime and every single one of those reserves so people know what's going on.
Great.
Now, so
Thank
you
you.
understand, there always has been transparency. The transparency thing is sort of a moot point, because the reality is that money is going in and out of there, and it all goes through the Board of Education at Board of Education meetings. But my point to you is that all those reserves, we will set up a meeting and go through all those to talk about it.
To be honest with you, this issue of transparency and what I heard today was very disheartening. Marie McKay, are you still here? Oh, you're behind me. Where are they? Oh, hi. I was on the initial Compact for Learning committee with Dr. Girardi. You were the teachers union president, right? Back or whatever. I am really concerned because we always had this degree of transparency, and I love my school district. I've had 4 kids go through the school district, get well-paying jobs. As a matter of fact, on one of your pages where you talk about the AP program, parents, if you don't have your kids take the AP program, you are really missing out on an opportunity that our district offers, because my daughter went to Nazareth College, and that saved me half a semester of school, or half a semester of tuition, because she got credit for the AP courses here. Good job, way to go. Teachers, I love our teachers. Hey, who do I sound like? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's-
Last thing.
Can I ask you this? It's 8:07, and you've had a number of different opportunities to ask questions, and we had a board meeting scheduled at 8 o'clock, so if I could give the next gentleman a last question, if that's all right, I'd appreciate that.
I do have one statement I came here to really make, and that was, and is this the right forum? Okay.
Depends on what you're gonna say.
I called Governor Cuomo's office last year and got misinformation that the veterans exemption that the town had extended was available for the school to extend to what they call Cold War veterans and disabled veterans. I understand that that was not the case, that the state has modified the law, and that this year veterans are eligible for that. So I was going to ask if the school board would consider amending their resolution to include us veterans that were not in that previous category as being combat veterans, because the town allows that exemption. It's not great. In my case, it'd be $60, but I would appreciate their consideration in involving all veterans in that exemption.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry for taking up so much time.
No problem. I would always sit there and tip my hat to a fellow soldier. I just have a real quick point of if you could clear up for me, Doctor. Am I to understand that you said that even at the highest tax rate, you'd still have to cut programs? I didn't, is that true or not true?
I don't understand the question.
The tax cap that you were talking about, that even at the tax cap, you'd still have to cut programs?
The tax cap for the school district was, the maximum we could have gone out with was
Would still-
3.72.
And that would still
We
result
went-
in?
We went down, and this budget reflects a 2.71 tax levy
No,
cap.
that wasn't the point I was looking to clear up. I'm saying, is it your understanding, so I can understand you, that even at the maximum tax cap, it would still result in a cut in programs and services?
I don't know what you're talking about, because,
Okay,
wait,
that's okay.
let me answer the question.
What, I just,
At
that was a-
2.71, all programs are in place and everything is set, which is lower than the 3.72.
Okay, I just was looking to get that clear.
2.17, sorry.
The question I kind of had was, I would contend at the local level, you're seeing public policy challenges that are being realized at the national level, and whose environment is kind of like defined by financial scarcity underwritten by demographic realities. Given that observation and your statement of kicking the can down the road to ensure that present students have opportunities, it almost seems reactionary in nature to those public policy challenges. So I guess my question is, what specific approaches are being taken to bring costs and resources into balance at a sustainable level, right? So that you don't have to have another person kick the can down the road in the future.
I think we just answered that. We do
No, not
everything we
really.
possibly can to share services, to maximize opportunities for everything. So that's why our budget is so low, and that's why we have one of the best tax rates in the area, and that's why we're one of the most cost-effective school districts in Western New York, and we're going to continue those things. If you're saying that we should have gone out with a 3.72 tax rate to maximize dollars.
That's not what I said.
Okay, then what are you saying?
No, I'm saying that if that was successful, then why would you need to kick the can down the road? I mean, that seems like a very odd way of categorizing the policies you've initiated, which it seems to be very reactionary in nature. If it indeed is successful and it's sustainable, then you wouldn't need to kick the can down the road.
What I was trying to do was...
Maybe I misunderstood your statement.
I think you did. So what I was trying to do was to compare and contrast the old days and how things worked and the brave new world that we're in with a 2% tax cap in the last 4 years. And we need new thinking, and we need to think hard about how we do that. In the old days, we didn't have to worry about those things. So we will maximize and do everything we possibly can to be cost efficient within the school district, but at the same time, we're not leaving money on the table with the tax cap, and we are going to balance that and offset that with reserves. Some years, we're going to have good years, and we're going to replenish our reserves, hopefully. And in other years, we're going to have to dip in and use reserves, and that's already been manifested in the last couple years with the Board of Education in this school district.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll begin a Board of Education meeting. How about a 5-minute break?